my god, I made it. Yes, did I make it? I made it. I got it right. Awesome. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Cult of Color, episode number whatever. I stopped counting already. Let's see who we got in the chat. We got Flexo. Hey, welcome Flexo. Maddie's Drone World. Car Guy for Life. What's up? Fly Zone FPV. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And John Cuppy. Welcome. Good to see you here. Sergio, Fly Zone FPV. You get 2 FPVs? Okay. What's up? Glad everybody made it in. Appreciate it very much. Anyway, so as was briefly advertised, we're going over some DJI Action 4 footage today. I managed to get my 3D printer to stop making spaghetti for 2 seconds and actually print out the mount that I needed to put the Action 4 on my 5-inch. And yeah, so had a quick flight with it today. I haven't really dug into the footage. I've like watched it in Gyroflow. I have messed around with some other clips, but I have not graded anything. So this will be a first time for all of us together. Hey Bartman dude, what's going on? Good to see you. Let's see what else we got going on. I think a little bit later on I'm going to talk about the difference between when I say HDR, when I'm talking about color grading, versus what GoPro and, you know, Insta360 say when they say HDR mode, right? It's not really a true HDR type of thing. The file that it gives you is not HDR. So we'll talk about those differences and how to tell the difference between like real HDR and marketing wink. And then we'll do some question and answer type stuff. So good to see everybody in the chat. We've got a lot of folks going on to it today, so we will go ahead and get ourselves started here. Let me turn this down just a touch. Okay. So we got this clip. You probably won't be able to hear the audio, but we'll play this. Wait a minute. The hell? This is 16. This is supposed to be 4x3. Oh wait, that's the one I already stabilized. Duh, I'm a dumbass. Alright, so there's 4x3. So it's basically the Action 4 it's very simple in terms of the settings that are available to you. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense on one hand, but it makes a decent amount of sense on the other hand. So it's at 4K 4x3, which equals 32 or 3860 by 2880, I believe. Gives you slightly more vertical lines. Oh hey, thanks Maddie, appreciate that. Gives you slightly more vertical lines of resolution, which does play a factor in what happens after you run it through Gyroflow. I have noticed, because it was pretty gloomy today, so it wasn't like a bright sunny day. There was a little bit of the low light action happening. And I'm not a fan of how it does it. It's really more of a function of how it handles low light with the sensor, and we'll go into that and how action cams handle motion blur as well. Yeah, so this is the footage. Very simple flight. I was barefoot and wearing a t-shirt. I just needed to get the flight done so I could get the proper footage for you guys. It's a little better than walking around and just like, you know, talking into the camera. So with that, let's drop it in a Gyroflow and see what we get. I think you guys are going to find this interesting. Go ahead and just delete that one real quick. Yeah. Okay, so like with most DJI cameras, it automatically loads a lens distortion profile in the gyro data. The problem is the lens distortion profile is really fucky. Look at my face there. It shouldn't look like that. So Mikey just called me a hoe. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm a hoe. So yes, the distortion model, I guess, that DJI gave us, it says calibrated by DJI over here on the left side. Not too good. It's a bit screwy. If you pop that out, you can see how wide it is. It's unnecessarily wide. Like, these nearest corners should always be touching this frame right here. So for whatever reason, even when it's still, you see that gap right there, those should be closer in. And I think it has something to do with, I mean, their distortion profile is wacky. So if you look at what happens when I start pulling the lens correction strength down, it starts rolling up into this weird spherical thing. It doesn't make any sense. That's not at all what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to go to a 4x3 square. So DJI screwed something up. What I have found, though, is if I search and just use the Action, the original DJI Action 4x3, it's going to scream at me about not having the dimensions. And again, the distortion model is super weird. But at least it gives me a proper aspect ratio. So yeah, this is what it looks like with my simple stabilization turned on. 100 millisecond window, 1 second zooming speed. If you look, it's correcting for rolling shutter, and the shutter geez, I can't hear. The shutter readout time is 21.82 milliseconds, which is about, it's about 1/48 of a second, give or take. So that's quite a long time. To put that in perspective, the readout time of a Blackmagic Pocket 4K with a Super 16 sensor is about 16.2 milliseconds. The readout time changes with resolution in a lot of cases, but since we're at the maximum resolution, supposedly we're acquiring at the highest, acquiring the full frame sensor. That's pretty slow. So that's going to cause some jello artifacting. It's about it's about half as bad as the Insta360 Ace Pro. One of the things I've noticed just offhand looking at this, the dynamic range looks pretty good. The exposure speed is a little fast. It's a little aggressive on how it corrects exposure as I fly. Like if I point towards the sky, for instance, right? Like it's all right, but I am running 10-bit, the D log or M log or whatever the hell they call it in this camera, their log version, and obviously no LUTs at this point, so you can kind of get an idea what the dynamic range looks like. I have noticed a couple of things. You won't be able to notice it probably on the stream right now until I get into Resolve and I crank some settings so you can see how it breaks down. One of the things, like, you want to test a codec, you want to test an encoding, you take it into Resolve and you crank the contrast, you crank the saturation and see what breaks, and that's how you're going to find the limits of your encoding. So yeah, I don't know, that might have been one of my neighbors or something, but yeah, so I'll just go ahead and we'll clip this here and I will export. And that should take, a few minutes. It's running way slower than it normally does because I am streaming right now. So, what's going on in the chat, guys? Anybody done any cinematic work lately? Everybody running GoPros? Anybody running late model? Like, I think a couple of people have Hero 11s out there, maybe Hero 10. Anybody got the Action 4 yet, or the Ace Pro? So here's the Ace Pro. It's kind of hot buttery garbage. So, and then I've got I'll plug this shit. Got the Action 4 here. Actually, you'd turn it off. Cool thing about this guy, you can just plug it in and use it like a webcam also with no special software. So like GoPro requires you have special software. Insta360, it's not even an option. This guy just shows up like a normal webcam, so that's super cool. It also came with this protective cage. So let me pop out the actual camera here. Come on, you can do it. I believe in you. Holy shit, seriously? It's a little bit of a pain in the dick. Okay, there we go. So it's pretty small, right? Let me grab, here is Hero 12 for a comparison. It's a little bit smaller than the Hero 12. The thing that I think would bother me is the Hero 12, the reason why it's bigger is it has more of that bumper type material around the frame. This by itself does not. That's why they include this protective cage. And I actually think that's a really smart thing to do, because, you know, if you trash, you know, one, it puts a little space between the screen and the edge there, so it kind of recesses the screen a bit. But also, you only have to replace this cage instead of replacing the whole camera if you know, smash up a corner or something like that. So, and it will still mount landscape without this, but this also allows you to mount portrait in case you want to get cute with it. So far, you know, just dicking around with it, it's pretty impressive. I think one of the things I've noticed from, holy shit, I'm retarded. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so we'll get all the cameras out of the way here. Let's look at the chat. So let's see. Got my mount for the GoPro 11. Can't wait to check it out in the air. Nice. Nice. Yeah, GoPro 11 is excellent. I think that's really where they made, you know, some of their biggest jumps. Some of the biggest jumps from the 10 and the 9. That 8:7 aspect ratio is absolutely choice for getting the clearest result after you do the stabilization, because of the way it stretches pixels out. I think it's 48, 46 pixels vertically in 8:7. So that's quite a bit. Christmas lights. You haven't flown in a week or two. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it is the season if you can handle it. I can only do like 1 or 2 packs outside before I gotta find someplace warm up my little fingies. My fingers are really sensitive to cold, and so winter's a tough one for me. The colder it gets outside, the less stamina I have, and if I use gloves, I can't feel the sticks at all, and it makes me feel paralyzed. So that's done, and we got our fancy stabilized thingamajiggy here. Let's dig into Resolve. So I'll have to switch a few things around in Resolve real quick. Yeah, the Hero 11 was, I think that was kind of the big eye-opener for GoPro users. If I think a lot of people might have given up around the 10, from what I've heard, then switched to DJI. Yeah, car guy, I have seen those giant glove enclosure things. It sounds like a real pain in the ass, honestly. So I don't know if I could, I mean, if I had to do work, like if I just absolutely had to, then yeah, I would get one of those. I have yet to have an outdoor job as a pilot in the wintertime, so I think I'm okay there. So just switching my color over to back to SDR so you guys can see it. And then I'll grab a file here, drop that in there. We're gonna change the frame rate because it comes out. I shot 30 frames per second, so it wasn't too jittery. And there we go. So we'll drop over to the edit page. We'll take a quick look at it. So it looks like Resolve is detecting it as 29.97 drop frame, which it's basically the same thing in today's day and age. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if you're wondering what DF means, it doesn't mean down to fuck, it means drop frame. Yeah, so kind of looking at this like oh Jesus, there we go. Pretty decent dynamic range. I think we'll take it down on the timeline just as is. We'll head straight over to the color tab. First thing I'm gonna do my typical 3 slider grade, the quick correction. So pivot to 1, shadows to 100, and then contrast to taste. And it was pretty gloomy, so looks like it's a little bit blue. We don't want quite so much contrast there. So here's something I noticed when dealing with low light. Anything colder than 40. Yeah, I'm with you, car guy. It's gnarly. My fingers are super sensitive. My fingies. Ooh. Yeah, well, that's what you get, Maddie. So let's take a quick look at this. I think the thing I want to point out, because I know it's going to do it because it was dark out there, is look at the sky relative to the rest of the footage. So the highlights appear to be, for lack of a better term, they're disconnected from the rest. Okay, so when I hit play and you watch that, they wiggle around in the background. The sky wiggles. And sometimes you'll see it when there's something dark in front of the sky, like a branch or tree or something like that, and there's a vibration. You'll see it wiggle. And that's not a gyroflow artifact, that's a DJI artifact. And it really like rears its ugly head the lower the light. And it has to do with the way the quote-unquote shutter works on an action cam. And this is part of the reason why, you know, the actual sensor readout time is such a big deal. It needs to be rapid. Otherwise, you're going to get these types of artifacting, not just the jello artifacting, but you're going to get ghosting in the shadows, and you know, extreme shadows and extreme highlights in kind of like moderate to moderate dim situations. Defluxo says, my Resolve is fucking broken. They updated it and it won't play back anything. I downloaded it back and it still has the same problem. I'm about to wipe my whole PC clean just to see if it fixes it. It won't play back anything. That's interesting. Chi-Town, Chicago. Yeah, Chicago has it worse, I think, because of that wind, man. If you go downtown, I've been out there in wintertime a couple of times, and it's pretty gnarly. So we can accentuate this wiggle thing if I just crank on this guy a little bit more, and then we'll crank the saturation, and you'll see where the codec starts to break down. You can see the fringing around the branches, and then you can see the pixelization in the clouds and the deep shadows, where it tends to put less of the available bit rate. It's putting less of that into the extreme shadows and extreme highlights. That being said, I do like the highlight roll off. See, I was barefoot, friggin' knucklehead. I do like the highlight roll off because you don't have just like this flat top where, you know, that's it, that's peak. It seems to roll off very smoothly. Color information, it's a little bit on the blue side. This is automatic white balance, so it came out a little bit on the blue side. Looks like it doesn't have a preference as far as what color is more sensitive to the other, because usually, like, and that's a good thing. You don't want to, if you have a camera that has, you know, it's the white balance is supposedly balanced. If you crank the saturation, it shouldn't shift towards one color or another. I think in acquisition it was a little bit on the blue side, so I think the white balance is off a little bit, but I wouldn't say that the sensor's responding to different colors differently. I think it might be responding to red a little bit more than blue. We can come down back here to the beginning, and we'll just go ahead and pull some white balance off this guy's house. But see, if you zoom in, you can see that the colors are really breaking down there. You can still see the difference between those two shades, even though it's 10-bit. So that's white balance pulled, and it's still very blue and purple in the sky, and it shouldn't be. This is, I mean, the white balance is shifting all over the place also. So, I mean, it's going to be, auto white balance doesn't really do anybody any favors. When you talk about color grading, you definitely don't want your white balance changing as you, don't be scum and hit the thumb. I love it. You don't want your white balance shifting all over the place as you're flying around. It makes color grading very difficult. Appreciate that, Mike. You can definitely see the sky kind of wiggling around, and the keyframe interval in the encoding is really long. I want to say it's 2 seconds, which is pretty long. Yeah, that's interesting, Flexo. I can't think of why that would happen. Do you have a decklink card in your machine? So another thing I'm noticing is if you look in the middle here, it's more white, but then as you go off to the sides, it turns purple. So I don't know if it's a natural vignetting or if it's an artifact of the sensor itself. And we can make it even worse if we really want to illustrate it. We'll just grab let me actually, there we go. Have the right application and focus here. We'll grab another node and I will crank the saturation up in this one too. And it's gonna look ugly, but this is gonna expose what's wrong with the sky. So like if I really punch in here, you can see those blocky squares. Yeah, so you got a lot of blocking happening in the highlights and right near details. So the implementation of the HEVC codec is not bueno in comparison to others. There really should not be this much blocking. So looking at the file metadata, uh, 112 megabits per second is the average bit rate for this file. And for 10-bit, that's a little low. That's like 300K per frame, I think. Yeah, 332 bits per pixel. So it's 317 kilobit per second on the audio. So the audio looks good, although it is low complexity, so it's very lossy, but it's a high bit rate. It could definitely be better. You can see there's some artificial sharpening happening here. And that's where you see like all of a sudden a tighter bundle of blocks next to the big blocks. That's artificial sharpening. And then there's like this weird sharpness here where it's kind of mushy right in here. Basic gaming PC at 3600 and 1080. Does it just do nothing? Or does it show a black screen when you try to play? Does it crash? Let me know. Let me know down in the doobly-doo. So, yeah. I mean, this is kind of par for the course for action cams, right? GoPro's not perfect. Insta360 is... Let's not even talk about Insta360. This is kind of par for the course. Could it be better? Absolutely. They could have thrown 40 more megabit at it because most people are going to be running fast enough SD cards. And I mean, based on my experience, the Action 4, the processor is more than fast enough to handle a higher bit rate. But this sort of stuff would be difficult to clean up, except that you could just do this on some denoise. And it seems to just disappear a little bit. Oh, I need to do it on the main node, the first node, otherwise it doesn't do it correctly. There we go. It just kind of mushes it together, but you can still see like it's blue here and it's purple off to the left and off to the right. So there's a lot of, it's discarding a lot of color despite being 10-bit. Now, when you have high intensity contrast, that's where the 10-bit color really fills in. Like down here, there's hardly any blocking. And you do have like those reflective colors off that line there on that car. So, I mean, it's not terrible. And unfortunately, it looked like ass today, so I didn't have an opportunity to like actually gather any you know, grade-worthy footage. Now, I just happen to stop on this frame, but I'm noticing something here. If you look down here, you see how it looks like it's smeared? That is an artifact of the sensor scanning when it goes into like a low light mode. If I like walked outside with it right now and then showed this to you, you would see it. It would be very obvious. Fast and Furious 1 vibes, yeah, for real, dude. Back when Fast and Furious was good, although that movie did end the entire street racing scene for me, so it just ruined it. All the kids with their Civics and fart cans showed up. That's a different episode. So in this particular instance, I must have had some kind of high frequency shake on the drone, some kind of like turbulent bump that caused the camera to jiggle a little bit, and it causes this artifact here. If I go to the previous frame, looks like it's there in the previous frame. Actually, there quite a bit right there, but you don't see it here, so it's not motion blur. It's just a smearing. There it goes now, it's kind of gone. I wish I could find the actual place where I saw it before. What a world? Why, oh, because I got denoise turned on. And I'm like out of CPU cycles. Okay. So I take that back. That smearing might have been the denoise. It typically plays, but like at 1 frame per second, audio is all glitchy too. It does it even if I edit in 480 before I could play back 4K, no problem, unless there was a ton of effects transitions. Is this a paid version or free version? Look at RAM and VRAM to spare when it happens too. Looks like smeared shit. That's funny. I would say install the studio driver for your 1080 Ti. You might need to use a driver uninstaller to completely remove all of the artifacts of the current driver. And then go into the preferences. So going into hitting DaVinci Resolve, going to preferences, memory and GPU, and just setting everything to auto. That I think will help, or at least give you more to work from. I think if that doesn't work, switching over to like completely uninstalling, switching over to the studio driver, and then making sure those settings, the memory and GPU settings, are just all set to auto. If that still doesn't work, then I will like get with me if you can, find me somehow, Discord, whatever, and I'll give you instructions on how to get the logs from Resolve, and I'll have a look at it for you. I'm happy to help you out. So, yeah. Decent detail in the highlights, but the colors really start to shift. So, like, the luminance detail is there. There's some birds. At least I think it is. I don't think it's smeared shit. Let's see if I can find one that I was talking about earlier. Back here. Come on, show yourself. I see the sky whale going around a lot. chasing cars. I'm like the neighborhood dog running around. You seem busy at the moment, huh? What? What are you talking about? Oh, I see. Now I put it together. Yes. I will send you an email. I think it did it here. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, whatever, kids. So I picked it apart. It's definitely usable. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't scoff at getting this footage. I have graded footage from the Action 2, and I thought that was absolute trash. So DJI has definitely come a long way here. Yeah, Maddie, I'm an asshole too. It's fine. So, yes, let's actually try to make this look halfway decent, shall we? So we'll reset the node grade on this node. One thing I like to do for log does make it a little bit easier. I do this with GP log also, and I assume it's going to work properly here. So if you right click on your clip and you go down to input color space, it's by default going to show what the actual color space is, right? Rec 709 scene. Well, we're going to go down to HLG and choose Rec 709 HLG. We're still working in standard definition, Rec 709 timeline, Rec 709 delivery, but this HLG will bring up the shadows and give you back the detail in the shadows. It definitely helps, especially if you do that 3 slider correction bullshit that I taught you guys, right? So we'll do the pivot, shadows, contrast to taste, and there you go. So there's the good 3 slider correction for the log footage. Doesn't look too bad. I'm looking at my parades here. My highlights are well underneath the peak. None of my shadows are crushed. But you can tell the blue is definitely the brightest color of all of them. It's very, very, very blue. I'm just going to leave it because it is auto white balance. So as soon as I fly over something brown, the white balance shifts. If I point at the sky, the white balance shifts. It's a little bit out of control. And we got a little bit of the sky wiggling happening in the background there. And I think what I'll do is I will try doing a split grade here. So we'll call this, I need to make a node before it. Serial before. We'll just call this a base. Usually this would be a white balance for my GoPro stuff. But yeah, we'll call this ground. Then we'll need to make another node. We'll call this track. Pull visual information from there. Take that just so I can see it. Come over and bust out some magic track. Magic mask, rather. There. I'm just gonna turn on the onions again. I'm gonna color all the things blue for the ground. Whee! There we go. And we'll say we don't want the sky. Oops. No sky. We'll click over to better. Hopefully I can get away with just tracking this once. It doesn't turn into a pain in the dick. Hopefully. Shit. Oh, okay, it's right there. Awesome. Color grading 101. So that is actually a really good question, Flexo. And I think that should be its own episode, and I think I'm going to do that next week. I think that actually highlights a really good point that I've kind of jumped into this with folks a little bit. Like, I've been jumping around all over the place, right? And some of my techniques get advanced really quick, and some don't. And I think talking about the fundamentals of color space, chromo subsampling, logarithmic gamma curves, and all that happy horse shit, you know, a lot of which you'll hear in marketing wink. Oh, I can't stand that guy, dude. Our guy. I can't stand that guy. He's so pretentious. I will do a brand new one. I will do one for you guys next week. We'll do basics. We'll talk about, you know, all the base shit. All the basic shit. So, if you guys didn't see it in the title, this show is going to be every week, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Usually what ends up happening is I do a show, we have a really good time, and then like 4 days after, I've got an idea for the next thing, but now I gotta wait another week. Pain in the dick. Sort of. Car guy. Log is a little different than that. If I were to... So, if you look at this curve, this is a curve. It's a linear curve, okay? Log is a logarithmic curve that looks like this. Alright, so I'm doing it to footage that's already been treated. Okay? And then like gamma 2.2, your regular video, kind of looks like that. And then linear would look like that. It rarely ever goes negative. So log is just logarithmic. And what it does is it takes shadow information and pushes it towards the middle of the codec encoding, which gives it more of the bit rate. So that's where you get more shadow detail with logarithmic gamma curve. And in theory, you get more effective stops of dynamic range, meaning the luminant difference between the brightest thing in the picture and the darkest thing in the picture that you can actually perceive and have detail in is wider with logarithmic curves. You just have to correct for it. And some log profiles for different cameras are different intensities. So in my opinion, the log profile for the DJI Action 4 is very mild. The log profile for GoPro is a little bit more intense, but still relatively mild compared to like Sony, right? Or Red. Those log profiles are pretty intense. No, I'm glad, car guy. When I got started, he wasn't a thing on YouTube. I'm sure I mean, I've watched some of his videos. He knows what he's doing, bar none. The thing that just gets me is when he tells you you have to do something a certain way. I try to avoid that. I try to be the definitive authority on this is how you do something or you're wrong. There are many different ways to accomplish the same task, and I always encourage people that I help and teach to be creative and try new things and try to find new ways to do these things to accomplish their own personal goals. As color grading enthusiasts, if they want to become a colorist and they can produce consistent, high quality output for clients, it doesn't matter how you get there. It just matters that you get there. So yes, that's log. But yeah, next week, Flexo, we're gonna do a basics. It's gonna be, color grading 101, like you said. I think that's a great title for it, and I would, yeah. That's a really great idea, and I can't believe I haven't done one like that since. And I think it's because I got hung up on some people who already understand color grading to some degree, and not those people who want to learn, but I feel like I've left a bunch of you in the dust and now I feel shitty. So I appreciate that call out, Flexo. We'll do a 101 next weekend. We'll do a lot of Q&A, and we'll get to the bottom of these things and try to make these concepts real for you guys. Okay, so what did I do? Right, I was going to track, and do I really want to? Let's try it. Yeah, no worries, man. Being dangerous is part of the fun. I'm not even paying attention if this is tracking correctly. I have a feeling it's going to break down right here. No, not quite. Not bad. I might not need to do anything to it. I mean, I'm not going to go as insane with it as I usually go. Yeah, car guy, and you know what? That's perfectly okay. I think the thing that everybody needs to understand is we're all on the same journey, and some of us are just a little bit further than others. I think what I want to do is circle back around and pick up a few people that I might have inadvertently left behind. I don't want to get too in the weeds and technical on certain things. If the majority of my audience is going to get lost, I think that's doing a disservice, and honestly, it's just a lack of reading the room, so to speak. Yeah, there. That kind of shit the bed there. Is it going to recover? Yeah, it recovered. So we'll fix that. Maybe, oh yeah, there it goes. Now it's really going good. I don't really care. We're only concerned with a couple of frames of this. It's fine. I do need finishing out there. Now the whole sky's fucking whatever. I don't care. It's just going to do whatever it wants, essentially. Yeah, this isn't a Magic Mask tutorial, but I just want to see how good can I make it look given the shit light that I had today and the profile of the camera. I don't need every single frame to make it look good, just a few. But I need to just finish because I started a little bit after. I need to get the beginning, so it's actually worth watching. I do like the field of view. Field of view is pretty good. I want to say it's a touch wider than the GoPro. It's hard to tell because and when I acquire with GoPro, I'm acquiring 8x7, and I'm not even sure if this distortion profile is maximizing that resolution. Since the one that's built into GyroFlow is garbage, it does not work. Do not want. So, okay, so I got my track. I can get rid of that. And I'm going to make a parallel node, a layer node rather. So the ground is going to be on the bottom. And then we will take another corrector. Hook it up to our base, hook it up here, call this sky. Now, the whole point of splitting the sky and the ground is if I want to bring the clouds out and make them look amazing, it usually screws up the ground. And if I want to make the ground look how I want, it usually screws up the sky. So splitting the sky, Maddie. Oh, I mean, whatever, dude. Splitting up the sky and the ground is helpful for being able to get the most out of both ends of that spectrum, because the ground is usually like mostly midtones and shadows, and the sky is mostly highlights and some midtones. So kind of throwing them together can be helpful. So I'll take that. I'm taking the mask from the track where I selected the ground and hooked it up to sky, and then I'm going to invert it so that I am selecting the sky. So I don't have to track the sky separately from the ground, or track the ground. I can just take the inverse of the ground track. And like I said, I'm not putting a whole lot of effort into the track because I don't care that much, so I will do like denoise, post filter, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So now I can control my sky and my ground separately. So if I go on the ground, I've got, like I said, that fancy contrast thing that we were playing with before, the three slider technical grade. I can do that there, and go to the sky. I can do the exact same thing, except this time I'll leave the shadows out. I can just pull that down, maybe even pull that pivot back up a bit more. So there's the extreme of the highlights. This is really good for an action cam. The fact that there's still this much detail in the absolute extremes and it's not just clipped off, this is really good. I'm excited to see what the Action 4 can do during the daytime, like in the sunshine. Because the GoPro, like most of this on a GoPro would just be white. It would still have some detail around here, but there would be a lot of it that's clipped. But it looks like none of this is actually clipped, meaning the information's been discarded or lost. So that's really good. Now, this is a little extreme, obviously, and I'm not interested in doing that in particular. And I'm going to take the lift, plunk, gamma up a little bit. Holy shit. There we go. And we'll throw some mid-tone detail in the sky, and it's going to start blooming around the trees. I don't really care right now. You see how fast the clouds are moving. There's a breezy boy. So I'd have to do some denoising. You see how the sky's kind of jumping around. And the pixelization that we were looking at before is definitely rearing its ugly head. And that can be fixed with a little bit of denoise. If I was super patient, I could run this stuff through an AI and basically redraw the frame without any noise. Nobody has that kind of time right now for this shot, this clip. Not fantastic. So I think the Action 4 is a little bit aggressive on the exposure changes. There's probably a setting I can do. I have done nothing to the camera as far as settings go. I have just set it and went and flew. I can't find any kind of like advanced or pro settings. Out of the box, it's not disappointing. It's got some quirks, that weird smearing in the highlights because of, you know, when it starts getting into a low light situation, it jumps around. And the way that works is the same way that action cameras generate motion blur. In a cinema camera, yeah, now it's really starting to fall apart and looking ugly because I didn't care about the track. In a cinema camera, well, let's go back to film cameras, right? You had a shutter that opened and closed, or you had a radial shutter that would pass in front, you know, have a hole in it that would pass in front of the slide of film. And so the kind of motion blur you wanted, depending upon how long that shutter is open in front of that piece of film, how long it exposed it, right? So the basic equivalency, you know, the standard in cinema is 180 degree shutter, which means if your frame rate is 24 frames per second, each frame is 1/24th of a second, and 180 is halfway around that particular time circle. So if 1/24th of a second was a circle of time, then 180 degrees was halfway through, and that means the shutter will be open for half of that 1/24th of a second, and during the time that it's open, it will smear and blur. So that's how motion blur is created on film. In high-end cinema cameras, it's essentially done the same way, but electronically. There's not a mechanical shutter that sits in front of the sensor. The sensor's just powered on and allowed to expose cumulatively for that half a frame or whatever it is, right? That 180 degrees. But on action cams, they don't have sensors that can do that. What they do, And this can be seen with GoPro footage if you know, if I like to fly low and fast, you guys know that. If I fly low and fast over something like water, some of the like really sharp highlight reflections of the sun or something like that, you can see that whizzing past. You'll see multiple copies of the same tiny little highlight. And that's because the way these cameras work to generate motion blur, when the shutter's open, it's taking a bunch of stills at the same time. And when the shutter closes, it mushes them all together into a single film and delivers it to the SD card. That's why sensor readout time is really important, because, you know, I was just thinking about this. The Ace Pro at 8K, 24 frames per second, the readout time is just over 40 milliseconds. 40 milliseconds is 360 degrees. It is taking the entire 1/24th of a second to read the sensor, which means motion blur is going to have, it's going to be, I don't even think it can make motion blur. I think it's just going to be smeary, stretched out crap. And then if you have any like radial changes or side to side changes, it's just going to like, almost like drawing in sand is essentially what it's going to look like. I don't know. It's not a good look for them. I think the Ace Pro is a swing and a miss as far as, you know, anything that's useful for cinema or cinematic. I think the DJI is definitely usable. It does have a slightly slower sensor readout time. I think if I recall in gyroflow it was 1/48th of a second, give or take. It was about 20 milliseconds. Which means to calculate motion blur for 24 frames per second, it's going to be able to take only 2 tiny stills during that 1/48. No, it's going to only be able to take 1 still of that 1/48. It'll take your initial frame. Oh shit, I don't know, man. I don't know, because the only thing that's really dictating the sensor readout speed is the resolution, not the shutter speed. There are variables in that some sensors can change their readout speed to synchronize with things like LED lights that flicker or fluorescent lights, right? You've heard a lot of cameras have that flicker compensation, either 50 hertz for, you know, Europe and the rest of the world, or 60 hertz for US and Japan and Australia and shit like that, right? So it very much that's the one thing that can just randomly change the readout time, and it tries to sync up with those types of flicker things to prevent the rolling lines of darkness that end up happening because of the way the sensors read, which ironically cinema cameras tend not to have. They tend not to have any compensation for flicker. If they do, it's minimal. So it's like, yeah, balls, man. Having that slow readout time means that you're not going to get the really great straight lines of motion blur that you would expect. So we get a little bit of motion blur here. Let's see if we can take a look at it. So I don't know what the shutter speed was. Everything was set on auto. Let me get a different tool here. Okay. So looks like it's not teabag. Coming around the edges here. All of these should be perfectly straight. They shouldn't curve at all. And you're gonna get like different, like, so you can tell this started exposing on that right side and then moved over to the left side. And you can kind of see that same thing happening all across these. So it looks like the sensor on this camera might scan left to right, not top down. Now, given this is 30 frames per second and the shutter's on auto, so not entirely sure what shutter speed it was using to control that exposure. It's not bad. I think with an ND filter it would probably look fine. It would be good enough for government work. The only time it would really expose itself is if, just like GoPro or any other action camera, you went and were flying, like if I were flying over water and I had really sharp tiny reflections of the sun, they would show up as multiple copies. Can I start? What? You dick. So yeah, I would give the Action 4 a grade of acceptable with some good points and some low points. I could use it, definitely. So let's see here. Let's go to the sky and we'll screw with it. Screw the ground. Let's take a LUT for fun. Oh, where is that shit? Red. There we go. Now it's fun. Yeah. And maybe I could throw some denoise on the sky. That would take care of the smeariness, some of the blockiness, some of it. You were literally asking me to do that, Matt. But it's fine. Yeah, it's not too bad. This is a terrible example. Like, it's not fair to the camera to judge it based on this clip. This clip is in really shit conditions, so your mileage may vary. But that kind of brings me to the next point I wanted to talk about, which is that HDR mode in cameras. You know how I was saying the way motion blur works with action cameras is it's multiple photos essentially stacked on top of each other to create that blurring effect. HDR is just two photos right next to each other at different exposure levels, and those exposure levels are combined together. It's sort of like bracketing on a photo camera if you've ever done that. But that in and of itself does give you more dynamic range in the picture. It doesn't give you more dynamic range in the data. That's kind of where 10-bit comes in. Logarithmic gamma curves, you know, color spaces, getting out of Rec 709, which is your standard video color spaces. When you watch YouTube, chances are you're watching Rec 709. Oh crap. So yeah, next week we're definitely going to get into the weeds on some more basic stuff. Try to get everybody on the same page so I don't just sound like I'm talking at you speaking Greek. Yeah, I don't have any other Action 4 footage handy. I deleted it because I'm a dumbass. Yeah, I was going to pull some of the low light footage. Giving a whole new meaning to 3.5, 5, and 8 inch. Ah, yeah, suppose so. Now I lost my train of thought. Damn it. Damn it. I was going to say something profound, I'm sure. Absolutely sure I was. Who absolutely knows? Damn it. I totally forgot. Moving on. Lol. Maddie's a dick word. Oh, you guys are savage. You guys are absolutely savage. Whoever's mashing all the hearts, I appreciate you. Damn, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. That sucks. Yeah, so, I mean, I need to get better footage to actually give this a good, like, it's hard to make gloomy day footage look good without making it look muddy, right? So, it's pretty limited. I was hoping to get it done on Friday, but I spent the whole day dicking around with my 3D printer. I'm not watching. I'm just here, man. I wonder who's watching. Oh my god. Love it. I welcome it. I fucking thrive off drama. Bring it, bitches. Yeah, you know, you can take your drama llama and just ride right on past. I'm cool with just, you know, chilling out. So, damn it. I still remember what I was gonna talk about. Now I just feel dumb as shit. Fire! I will say, so, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Talking about low light for this thing. I don't have, I could probably just acquire it really quick. Just let me turn this on here. And on. Oh, open this up. Hello, everybody. Hello. You see me? I see you. Alright, so it's really not that bad. It's quite good in the low light. Alright, so let me transfer this to my pewter. I can actually show you guys what the low light capability looks like. It's really dark in this room right now. What were you doing? You recording again? You big jerk. All right. So, oh, great! It started. What is it doing? Did I not start recording? Yes, that's my super messy desk. Cool. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. I wasn't even recording. Let me try to fix that. Okay, I'm recording now. You see the blinky fucking light. Blinky fucking light. All right, it's quite good. There's the old kitchen. Lights off in there. You can see some of the lights outside. Big ass bright monitors and, you know, me. So that kind of gives you an idea what the low light is. It's pretty good. Yeah, I'm about to watch Nomad from the Past, but live. If I can get my shit together, maybe. Say hi, everyone. Yes, my desk is an absolute disaster. So you get an idea, right? So the kitchen's really dark. The lights are on outside. Some neighbor down the street's got color lights and that comes through. And I mean everyone. Oh, goodness. That's funny. But yeah, so the camera's got low light. Like, I've heard people talking about, you know, the GoPro low light performance isn't that bad. It's absolute shit. And then, like, the big marketing wink selling point of the Insta360 is the low light capability. It is absolute trash. I mean, it's better than GoPro, but it is the difference between the Action 4 and the GoPro and the Insta360 in terms of low light performance is it's not even worth measuring. It's so gargantuan. They don't even compare. It's not even worth talking about. It's ridiculous. Take the Action 4 outside in the dark, long after sunset, and I'm looking up at myself and I can see the star behind me, and then I can see the detail of the clouds. So, you know, at night, in the dark, no moon, just stars and whatever street lamps are around. It was a lot like a Polar Pro, that kind of a starlight camera. The noise is the noise profile is a little bit better. You can't get rid of the noise on the Insta360. It's just impossible. I don't know what the problem is with it. The noise profile just doesn't match up to anything that Resolve uses or my AI shit or whatever. So it's pretty much garbage, but it's more usable in lower light, not like, you know, starlight, but in lower light the Insta360 is okay. The Action 4 is excellent in low lights. So that being said, Q&A time, guys. Q&A time. Everybody's still managing to not have run screaming. I don't know how I have 8 concurrent viewers. That boggles my mind every time I look at that. Anybody got any questions? Any piece of video they want me to take a look at, or a clip on YouTube they want me to take a look at, the grade, right? Anything like that. Oh, those are like, no matter what the subject of the show is, submissions like that are always open, always welcome. So please, by all means, hi. What's it like to live the lifestyle of Nomad Aerial? You're pretty much looking at it, dude. I'm here probably 8 to 12 hours a day at this dick. That damn joke, honey. This dick. At this desk, doing either work or playing for work. Pushed out on the flat profile again. How old am I really? I am 41 and 364 days old. So I turn... Oh, no, shit. I'm 43. I'm old. I turn... yes, thank you, Chatty Kimmy. Appreciate that. I turn 44 in just a few hours. I had to have my wife remind me of that, so... Some dick commitment there. Yeah. You think you broke the tuning knob? Oh no. Yeah, we're getting that dick sweat tonight, boys. Yeah, so I'll be 44 tomorrow. And that's how old I actually am. Contrary to the rumor that Maddie has been spreading around the internet that I'm turning 62, there probably are people out there who wouldn't doubt that based on my appearance. That's okay. But what is it like to live the life of Nomad? Well, it's this most of the year, and then come June, we are on the road. We're driving, I think we drove 8,100 miles last year, or this year. And back in June, we did 6,200 miles the year prior, and I think we're probably going to break. I don't know if we're going to break 10 grand this year. We're actually looking at less locations instead of more. It does get a little bit tiring being in the car all the time and not spending too much time at any one location. So I think we might want to like. Oh, Jesus Christ. Happy 62nd birthday. You motherfucker. You guys are crazy. Dear age liar. He's such a dick. Oh, good Lord. That's funny. Dear aged liar. Yeah, Bart. No, not the 69th yet. Ways to go. Yeah, it's a compromise, right? I'm fortunate to have the flexibility where I could basically take a month off in the summertime, and just go around flying, doing shit. Oh yeah, no worries, Maddie. I got you. I'll get you next time. Gadget, it's all right. I got you. Yeah, I work hard and play hard. That's how I like to kind of classify it. I don't take a whole lot of time off around the holidays. I don't know. I'm more concerned with like the people that work for me. I want them to have the time off, so I take up whatever slack I can to make sure that they get to be able to hang out with their families and not have to stress about anything. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Not a particularly religious person, so religious holidays are kind of a meh type of thing for me. But yeah, so let's see here. I don't know. Any other questions? Like color grading questions, not asinine questions. Yeah, I guess. They haven't fired me yet, so it's all good. If I can do a 1 node grade just to be really annoying. Yeah, 1 node grade. We don't talk about Tuesday. You have a question, one that's been having difficulty expressing accurately. What's that, Bart? Now I hear you, Flexo. We're gonna break it down to basics starting next week. I think maybe we'll even turn it into a series where it's progressive and it's not just random like I've been doing. What is your question? You just gonna leave me hanging, Bart, or what? There we go. So that's a really great question, Bart, and I think I've talked about it before, maybe with you, maybe with somebody else. Is there any difference between recording at 120 frames per second than rendering in 30 and recording in 30 and rendering in 30, besides the obvious shutter exposure stuff? So yeah, no worries, dude. With action cameras, let me start backwards. With cinema cameras, when you talk about bit rate, if you're encoding into a compressed file and not shooting raw, when you talk about bit rate, the bit rate is going to be it's hard, it's difficult to assume because you don't necessarily talk about raw bit rate, because the bit rate of the file will change based on the frame rate. Basically, the cinema camera tries to make sure every frame gets gets X amount of data no matter what the frame rate is, right? So 24 frames per second is going to be 40% as much data as 120 frames per second, or whatever the hell it is, right? 20%. I can math. Really, I could. You could have eaten a pizza while waiting for that question. Nice. But like things like cell phones, action cameras, a lot of mirrorless cameras, it's going to be a set file bit rate. So the higher your frame rate, the less data each frame gets. Okay, so if you say you get 100 megabit per second, right? So that means that if you're doing 24 frames per second, 1/24 of 100 megabit, each frame gets fucking whatever that is, right? 1/24 of 100. I don't know. I don't have the calculator out in front of me. If you do 120 frames per second, each frame gets 1/20 of 100 megabit of data. So that means that inherently each individual frame is going to be a lower quality at higher frame rates than lower frame rates. This is another one of the advantages of shooting 24 frames per second on these action cameras, because you get the most data in each individual frame as possible, which ultimately gives you the most to work with. Now, that isn't to say that 120 frames per second rendered at 30 is going to look worse, because it will, but there's a lot that can be done to kind of mitigate that. It would be better, like from a workflow standpoint, to make sure that you shoot in the frame rate that you're intending on an acquire, like you acquire in the frame rate you're intending on editing. The exception to that would be is if you want to do slow-mo. So like what I do with like my Pavo Pico, I shoot 120 frames per second, and then that gives me some flexibility. I can speed ramp and slow down all the way down until 20% normal speed, and then I have to start making up frames because now I would be going too slow, right? I know I'm speaking Spanish. Tango El Gato Los Pantalones. No worries, Bart. Yeah, it's kind of the world we live in, right? Micro SD cards are great. They're not particularly fast at streaming large block write type things like video files. They're excellent for photos or like small files, but they don't do well with large streams. So the vendors have to take the lowest common denominator into account when they set these limits. Like DJI had to imagine somebody took one of the most garbage micro SD cards and popped it in the Action 4, and they still expect it to work. So what do we set our bit rate to, right? 110 megabits, pretty low for 4K, 30 frames per second. Yeah, it's the amount of data per frame, right? Because 120 megabit is 120 megabit, whatever that ends up being. But it's the amount of data per frame that you acquire. So when you shoot 24 frames per second and you're still shooting at 150 megabit, then you're getting a lot of extra data per frame and less compression blocking and things that we saw in the highlights earlier. Mo bit rate is mo better, but only if your card and your controller can handle it. Most common Spanish phrase. Yeah, bruto, corre, rapido. Burrito Supreme. See? Hey guys, probably gonna go ahead and wrap this up a little bit early tonight because I did not plan as well as I thought. I was assuming I was gonna have a lot more interesting footage for the Action 4, and then Flexo's point really hit home with me, and I wanted to just, I think it might be better that I stop speaking Spanish for everybody, and maybe we can revisit things on a color grading 101 level next week. But I'm glad, Bart, I'm glad I could help. Yeah, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, And I appreciate everybody that came out to hang out, especially from Quad Mafia. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome. And we're going to get into some beginner shit next week, and I think we're going to turn it into a series so you guys will know what to expect moving forward. Everybody can get on the same page and come along with this journey with me from the start, so you don't have to go back and, hey, I mean, I get this, but what the fuck is this? What's a color space? Is that racist outer space? I don't know. So yeah. I love you all. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. I hope you guys have wonderful holidays. Wait, yeah, next Sunday's Christmas Eve, right? Do you guys want a Christmas Eve show? I'll do a Christmas Eve show. I don't mind. So, let me know. Because if you think you're going to be getting wasted on pajamas and fucking eggnog or some shit, we can put it off for a week. It's up to you guys. I'm gonna learn something next week. Yeah, we'll get you guys learnt. It's all good. Alright, well, all I needed was one vote, so we'll do a show next week. And it'll be as festive as you think it would be, given my lack of, or my incredible apathy for religious holidays. Cool. Awesome. Love you guys. We will see you next time on the Bat Channel. Okay, bye.